Howdy, everybody. Welcome to another Shatter the Script episode with your host, Jared May. We're getting closer and closer to Christmas, which there are going to be, I think, a ton of NFL games around Christmas time, but I appreciate you guys joining in. There's a lot going on in terms of college football playoffs this week, so that's going to be a big focus. I don't want to go too far into it. I got into predictions last week, just kind of way too early predictions. This upcoming week, I've savored the college football playoff content for the Stats and Scars episode. So the Stats and Scars episode on Thursday will contain a lot of that. For this episode, though, I have some really good Shatter the Script topics. So we'll be talking about Bill Belichick going to North Carolina. That is huge news in terms of the college football format of recruiting, of NIL, of structure. Devondre Campbell Sr., for the San Francisco 49ers decided to quit on his team, and we're kind of seeing this commonly spread across a lot of sports. And then, the Army and Navy game recap. I was able to get that Navy prediction correct over the Analyst from our past episode, but just the environment of the game. And then I believe we have one last, which is Travis Hunter winning the Heisman Trophy. I'm going to just kind of go into that. We'll be going into that part more in detail in the Stats and Scars, but I wanted to briefly mention it at some point in this episode, obviously. And then, of course, I'll finish off with my NFL Power Rankings. But that, the 12th Men segment is on a break until we're going to continue to narrow it down as the college football playoff becomes increasingly more small as more teams are eliminated. But man, I'm so excited for this weekend to see those first round matchups. I honestly was working on a different playoff format than what they have currently because I talked about it last week. But I was diving deep into it, and it's probably why I'm recording at the time I'm recording at right now, because I was just kind of going back and forth. I was like, wow, that doesn't really work either. Oh, that doesn't work. And it kind of narrowed down to, like, if they just go with the AP poll and rank them that way is the simplest way to do it. Your top 12 are your top 12 in. It has nothing to do with how they ranked it this year, is what I kind of came to the conclusion of. But there are some fun ideas you can play with, and that could be very interesting. All right, well, after previewing this episode, I do want to say that we're going to be probably skipping next week with no episode. Children being born, Christmas time, nobody's really paying attention anyway. They're all moving in different directions, especially if you got kids and especially if you got places to be, hunting trips and whatnot. Not a good weekend for content, So I think next week we'll most likely skip. So if you are a listener, there will not be an episode next week. Not getting lazy. It's just but we'll have content looking ahead towards that week that'll cover it. So it'll trickle into a 2-week episode for Stats and Scars as well as this week. And then after that, we'll get to the new year and we'll be inching closer to the NFL playoffs. The end of the college football playoff format and whatnot. So you'll be hearing from me on updates accordingly. Okay, well, after that long intro, let's get right into our first Shatter the Script segment statement, and that is Bill Belichick becoming the North Carolina head coach. Now, I think this is a power move from the ACC. I really do. If you want to get to the brass and tacks, obviously, Belichick didn't really obtain too much interest from the NFL GMs and organizations across, professional atmosphere. Which you would look at that and go, why not? And I think the short and quick answer, because we're not here to talk about this, but the short and quick answer to that question, he's a 5-time Super Bowl winning coach. Did he make Tom Brady or did he not make Tom Brady? Oh, after he left. I think it's because new NFL GMs, owners, and organizations are now trending towards younger-minded and aged coaches in the NFL rather than, per se, fossils. And that's not a jab at Bill Belichick. I just think look around the NFL, the Carolina Panthers, the Packers, the Lions OC with Ben Johnson. I mean, you can just kind of go all the way around the league. Sean McVay, younger coaches are starting to take over the NFL and doing a phenomenal job with it. And so these older guys are kind of frowned upon. However, they have a place in sports. And I think Bill Belichick just found the formula to that. So him going to, North Carolina, there was some speculations out there that he couldn't get any other collegiate job openings because there just weren't that many, and they didn't have any. Those college programs didn't have any interest in a guy like Belichick, and that report should not be believed, in my opinion. That report should be, excuse me, that report should be completely forgotten about, because for one, acting like North Carolina is not a prestigious university to go coach at is kind of ridiculous. It's silly. North Carolina has been a very solid program. They have an iconic baby blue look. Their basketball team has been great for a long time. Their baseball team's kind of off and on, but this is a great university. I mean, it produced Drake May and others. It's a cool place to go because it's not your typical, of course Belichick went to Michigan or Alabama or Oregon or whatever. Of course he went to this big name school. Woohoo, makes sense. No, he kind of tricked everybody and was like, whoa, wait, UNC. And, I don't want this to age poorly, everything I just said, but here's the primary, if you missed it, a lot of people probably tune into the mainstream media, so it's really hard to miss that this happened with Bill Belichick, joining the UNC staff. But, the primary mission here is he's aiming for his program to become essentially a feeder program for the NFL, backed by what essentially is, from Bill Belichick, an incredible manifesto. And that includes, player development so that they can be paid in college football the correct way, and then figuring out ways to pay current players. But player development and building within is what Bill Belichick is after, and doing it in a very professional manner. Essentially, think of it, a lot of people probably have not heard this term, but here's a kind of a similar comparison. And if you've ever heard of a university model school, a university model school is essentially college before college. In high school, you're doing college. You're on a college schedule. You have time management to accomplish. You're working with a co-teacher, which is your parent. A lot of people mistake it for homeschool, but let's say you're in the school 3 days a week or 5 days a week, but your day ends at 1:30 or so. Then you have athletic activities afterwards, but in between and after that time, you're responsible for what you're supposed to be learning and getting that homework done, getting it in on time, studying on your own. Everything is self-accountability, self-time management. And you have to practice that efficiently so that when you go to college, the transition is super simple, it's easy, and you feel like there's no change. And so that is different from a public school where it's like just plug and play. We're going to put you in a program. We're going to send you a curriculum, learn it or don't learn it. We don't really care. If you fail, you fail. But a university model school is so tailored to your success. And if you're not bought in, they'll figure it out and they'll cut ties. And they'll say, go back to public school. And, picture that with what Bill Belichick is trying to accomplish here. College program essentially is under the hood of the NFL, their NFL program, and they're going to translate NFL professionalism in college so that when they get to the NFL, they're ready to go, to plug and play. They've learned a program. They've learned a system. They're getting paid. They're staying for 2, 3, 4 years. They're not entering the transfer portal after 1 year. They are committed to becoming professionals. They are there's a cap. And so to add on to this, I hope that made sense. To add on to this, Michael Lombardi, who is a Super Bowl winning general manager from the NFL, decides to join Bill Belichick as North Carolina's general manager, which is a huge move. Obviously Lombardi has a very cool last name, Lombardi Trophy, Michael Lombardi. This is a very notorious move for the North Carolina, to which I greatly appreciate and think is going to be another, bombshell move, a big time move, dynamite type play by North Carolina. I mean, truth be told, North Carolina is absolutely cooking right now in the offseason. Belichick's also come out to confirm that they have visits, I think, scheduled every week or every day of the week this week. So they're about to probably get some really good transfer portal targets. It may take a year or two to really truly develop, but you're in it for the long haul with Belichick. And so this is one of those things that's going to be interesting to watch as it goes forward with Michael Lombardi as GM and Belichick as the head coach. But one of the things that is important as NIL continues to progress almost on its own path, like there's really no telling where NIL and the salary cap essentially to become in the college football programs, paying 5 stars versus 3 stars and whatnot, like all that craziness and roller coaster of activities that is going on currently in college football. We're going to see two things that are very important with North Carolina, to which Belichick noted, is there are essentially going to be 2 revenue streams that interact simultaneously in college football. Number one is player development, transitioning into good players who are being paid. And number 2 is paying current good players the amount that they deserve. So with that comes responsibility when you're in the college football program. Responsibility for player development. A lot like, I've preached about Arch Manning's path to becoming a starting quarterback. Like, is he ready to be a starting quarterback? Yes, probably. He has the talent. However, with this quarterback epidemic that has translated into the NFL, where we're seeing inefficient quarterback play, this is the beginning to what can be a really good format to developing young quarterbacks, to which they are paid before they get in the NFL. And when they get to the NFL, they're not just RPO merchants. They are, I understand coverages. I understand checks to the line. I understand pass protection. I understand, going through not just one read, but flowing with the play, high and low reads. Where's my number 1? Okay, there's back to number 2, back to number 3, check down. In and out in 3 seconds. Just fast processing quarterbacks, to which from freshman to senior year or junior year, if they're that good, I've learned the program. I've learned the system, a pro-style system, a modern NFL system incorporated at schools like North Carolina, and more to come. And I think that's really good for that first revenue stream that works simultaneously as player development. Coming in, developing an 18-year-old athlete into a good to great college football player who has good draft capital and has proven that he can learn in a professional system. Really good for college football, especially with the epidemic, like I mentioned. And number 2, the current players that are there, getting them the development and teaching before they leave will be essential for those current players, and then paying them appropriately as it pertains to a future cap on how much you can pay players. So just bottom line here, with all those things being said, Bill Belichick going to the North Carolina, there's mixed feelings on whether or not this is a good or bad move. I think this is a great move. I think this is fantastic for college football. It's something I've been looking forward to seeing. It's not to say current college football coaches aren't capable of doing this. I just think Bill Belichick is a rare one, to where you might see more NFL coaches and coordinators trickle into college football programs and say, I want to be a part of this movement as well. So I don't think Belichick's going to be the last. It may take some time, and we'll manifest on that for a couple of months or years, and you maybe come back to this video and if I'm correct. But I'm willing to bet that this trend will be positive for the next decade, and you'll really see college football start to improve. And ironically, it's not college football or the NCAA that's getting this right. It's the individuals who are a part of it, such as Belichick and the athletic director at UNC and the GM and whatnot. So that process, I think, will become more common. Okay, moving on to Devontae Campbell Sr. So if you're unaware of who that is a linebacker who plays for the San Francisco 49ers. Now, as the years have pertained, or as the years have gone by, San Francisco 49ers obviously have been a prestigious franchise. They've been really close to winning the Lombardi Trophy over the past 3 or 4 years, consistently being that number 1 or 2 seed, getting first-round byes in the playoffs, making it to the NFC Championship game, making it to the Super Bowl to play the Chiefs recently. They got a great coach. They got a great system. Always had a powerful defense. They've had 2 or 3 or 4 maybe defensive coordinators that have, there's Robert Saleh. There is D'Amico Ryans. I think their previous one also left to go coach somewhere else. Essentially, whoever incorporates this defense for the 49ers gets a head coaching job. And that Shanahan tree is obviously a prestigious one. Shanahan tree is one of the most famous coaching trees out there, to where LaFleur came from it, McVay came from it, Shanahan obviously came from it. So with all that being said, you're playing for this franchise. And it's kind of like, with the Dallas Cowboys, earn the star. When you get to the preseason, it's like that star on the side of your helmet is only there if you earn it in the offseason and whatnot. Now, take with that as you will, but I'm just using it as an example. The 49ers are a platform in the NFL that demands excellence. They are one of the most well-known across this nation and in the world. And this linebacker, in the matchup versus the Rams on Thursday Night Football, yes, there were kind of poor conditions during that game. I wonder if that had something to do with his decision. But he decided to leave the game late in the third quarter, around the fourth quarter, and he never entered the game and quit on the 49ers. And so obviously this stirred up a storm in the NFL, but for some reason I think this has become extremely more popular in the NFL and in the NBA. You don't really see it that much in the MLB. I mean, there's 162 games, but there's a difference between quitting in this sport versus others, because football is no doubtably one of the most brotherhood-like sports in sports. It is the most brotherhood-like sport in America. And you're riding a dime with your brothers on the field. The pregame speeches, the blood, sweat, and tears, everything that goes with football, and you quit on that is a horrible look, and it is absolutely disgusting. And especially at a professional level, because kids and athletes and that trickles down, like trickle down economics. I mean, it trickles down into generations to say, is that the right thing to do? Can I do that too? I've been kind of treated poorly. I haven't got my money. I haven't gotten a contract that I was, that I feel I deservedly get. And Devondre Campbell is, in this sense, a part of what is a despicable act. And when you go look at other players around the league, it's becoming more common. Deontay Johnson, Romeo Dubes, these personal issues in practice within the team's organization that is causing suspensions from the team mid-season. We haven't really seen much of this until recently. And I think it's the attitude that a lot of these NFL players carry with them, the entitlement, the belief that they might be above the organization. And the reasons for which they are doing so is unknown and unbeknownst to me. I can't think. You are in a position to which less than 1% of all athletes, essentially, that get to the dance like this, to get to the bigs, to get to the, your 15-man roster in the NBA, these types of players, the 1% of the 1%, are doing things like this, sacrificing their career to do whatever he was trying to do. And you pray that he took care of his money and whatnot in case he gets cut. But, I don't understand being in the position that you're at with the amount of income that you're making, the amount of opportunity you get to play a children's game for a life career that'll set you up and your children for future generations. you're developing a future for that family, and you decided to put it all on the line because of a personal issue that we still haven't really been able to have a comment on. And so, obviously, Coach Kyle Shanahan was shocked, and he narrowly commented on this issue because he's probably extremely upset and pissed that it even occurred, because it hasn't happened to him before. And you look at a team like, if you want to compare it to like the Pittsburgh Steelers, there's a famous clip recently this season to where Russell Wilson is under center. It's kind of a close game, and they were able to get the defense to jump offsides on like a 4th and short to seal the game. And every single player on that offense went berserk when they realized that our team through execution, made them commit a penalty, which won us the game. We are bought into this culture, into this organization. And that's what you're looking for, obviously. That's tailor-made. And I think what's really bothering Shanahan here is that he believed himself that he created that environment. Because you don't see, like, the attitude that the 49ers carry with them is kind of an FU attitude. It's kind of like, I don't care who's in front of us. We're going to play you hard. We're going to be more physical, and we're not going to apologize when we do it. And you see this with their notorious players like Trent Williams, Nick Bosa. Brock Purdy's a very silent killer. Christian McCaffrey's work ethic. You just can go down the line. But earlier in the year, Brandon Ayuk upset with his contract, didn't play well during the season, has sustained an injury. It's just been kind of a meltdown for this organization this year. And they're going to miss the playoffs, and they're last in their division. And, that might have to be part of the frustration with Devondre Campbell, but it also leaves no room for an excuse. It only gives you the notion to play harder, in my opinion, coming from where I come from. And, players spoke with heavy emotions after this happened, shortly after the loss to the Rams on Thursday Night Football, some people saying that, hey, making a personal decision like that doesn't fly well with me. I don't want to be around that sort of attitude on this team or anywhere or with any franchise. Some say he's probably going to get cut soon. And in my opinion, undoubtedly so. I think with an action like this from Devondre Campbell, I don't think it's an overreaction to say, no, like, you're cut, bye. And pray that maybe another team maybe picks you up and does something like this. I mean, Deontay Johnson with the Ravens is going through a similar scenario to where we don't know what kind of attitude you bring in, but you've trickled this. This attitude has followed you at every single organization and franchise that you've been a part of. And at some point, we've given you every opportunity, and you've squandered every single one, and we're done. And that's the attitude I would bring with Devondre Campbell. I would have cut him hours after he quit on the 49ers. Regardless of what I think, they suspended him 3 games per GM John Lynch. And I think that's cute. That's what I think. I think that's a really cute, in which 3 games is for the rest of the season, if you're not aware. I mean, they're 6-8. There's 3 games left. Let's say they won out and they were 9-8. Like, that's the end of the season. So 3 games is more or less calling it a cute, you're out, you're suspended the rest of the season. And that's embarrassing for an NFL player. It really is. But the headlines did a really good job of kind of shadowing the fact of that matter. And what I thought was hilarious was Josina Anderson, who is a journalist, writer, whatever you want to call it, who, tries to take controversial takes, a lot like others like her in the industry. Her title is Emmy/NABJ awarded journalist, senior NFL insider, founder, London Farrell Productions and Exhibit Concept Platform, host of The Exhibit, and alumni CBS, ESPN, and Showtime, has 252K followers. Here's what she said after Shadavius Ward talked on Devondre Campbell, and I mentioned this earlier, said that Campbell's actions definitely hurt the team. He's probably going to get cut soon. Her response was, no, there's no need to jump to instant job loss. He should be given to time to share his mindset, to commune with his teammates after more time to reflect and to demonstrate better judgment. That is the most idiotic thing I think I've read from a journalist in a long time. Because it clearly demonstrates you've never been a part of a team. You've never been a part of a brotherhood. You never, obviously, frankly, she's a woman. And it just, reading that, you're just like, yeah, whatever. Scroll past it. But I think it was worth noting because of how idiotic it was. And if you believe that this is the truth, that he should be given, is he supposed to be given 3 games that he's suspended to kind of contemplate why he would quit on an NFL franchise? And even if you were bottom of the barrel, 1-10, 1-11, you still have a responsibility that is greater than yourself to, let's say, like he's kind of closer to being a veteran, mentoring to younger players, showing resiliency in times of adversity and whatnot. And to ignore all that and say, well, let's hear his mindset. No, the mindset was clear on Thursday Night Football. He quit, and quitters can get gone. Simple as that, hands down. And there's just no place for that kind of opinion, in my opinion, in professional sports. Similar to how an NBA player will, they'll rest up, 12, 15 games a year for unknown reasons just because they're tired, when it's the most relaxing defense in the history of the NBA, which is why players like LeBron are able to play for decades and beat Father Time, because really there's nothing to beat. They're essentially the softest sport in terms of professional athletes that I've ever watched, which is why I take no interest in it. And you can argue with a wall on that one. That my personal mindset will not be changed on that matter. And you can provide 30-second clips of what is this called? And it's like probably a playoff game like Game 7, to where their defense started to matter and they played a little harder. But throughout the 82-game regular season, it's just trash. And it's why their ratings have plummeted over the past 3 or 4 years, and rightfully so. So, here's the end of the deal. The final take on that with Devondre Campbell Sr. is cut the dude. It's unacceptable, hands down. All right, now moving into Army versus Navy. And, I'm not going to go too much into this game, rather than the fact that, we predicted it last week with me and the Analyst on the Stats and Scars episode. The Analyst predicted that, Army was going to win this game. I predicted that Navy was going to win this game, and for our various reasons. And I think what's interesting about this game, and what's so exciting and mesmerizing and patriotic, is the traditions that you get to see when you go to these games. And for one, the color combos for the uniforms were awesome. I mean, they were chillingly good. And you get to hear the national anthem performed by their constituents. You got to see Donald Trump and his vice president-elect J.D. Vance at the game, saluting the Army and whatnot. It just kind of it gave off this energy that we're so back. America is back. This game is electrifyingly fun. Both the teams were ranked at one point in the season. I believe Army is still ranked. They won their conference this year, and it's old school run the veer, run the damn ball offenses going head to head at it. And what I thought was funny, the one thing in this game that I thought was interesting, was that a player spiked the ball in the end zone after a touchdown, and they were penalized for it, an excessive celebration of, essentially. And the commentator for CBS did an excellent job of saying, these dudes are laying their lives, on the they're laying down their lives for this country, and they show a little excitement, and you throw a penalty flag for that. There's just no place for that in sports. What a dumb call. And I 100% agree. And, Navy ended up winning this game in kind of a blowout fashion, 31-13, but just the environment at this location should not be forgotten. I think, especially as the turmoil that we're heading into for the next couple of years with everything going around in the world, I think this was a very prestigious game and a wonderful reminder to us of how much our soldiers mean to this country, and patriotism should not be you shouldn't apologize for it. So What an amazing game. What an amazing tradition. And it's cool to have that every year. Just 1 week set aside for armed forces. So hell of a game from Army and Navy, and hell of a season by those two teams. And Notre Dame, you're anti-American for beating them. Okay, and the last part of the Shatter the Script segment, and this has to do with Travis Hunter winning the Heisman Trophy. Which, congratulations to Travis Hunter from Colorado, the two-way college football player. He played wide receiver and DB, played a ton of snaps at a Tier 1 Big 12 level, Division 1 college football. And I just want to set the narrative straight in two different ways. The first being that, there are some that, were haters of Travis Hunter. They're saying, well, if you're going to win the Heisman at wide receiver, then you should be first at everything in your category. And they would bring up like a San Diego State wide receiver or the Stanford wide receiver or whatnot. Like, there were other receivers that had better stats than him. And it's not about that. When you look at Travis Hunter, it's about how, essentially the Heisman is the most valuable player. And looking at the Colorado Buffaloes, who are the Colorado Buffaloes without Travis Hunter? Who I have said that the Colorado Buffaloes are an independently branded team, to where without Shatter and Travis Hunter and some of their, a couple of their wide receivers and Shiloh Sanders on the defensive side of the ball, it's not a very good team. And the fact that they made it to 8-4 is solely on the shoulders of Shatter Sanders and Travis Hunter. And I think that was recognized with the Heisman Trophy. And I think it's nonsense to say, like, okay, well, Travis Hunter didn't lead all categories of receiving yards and receptions and touchdowns. However, that dude had over, I think 1,200 yards receiving, double-digit touchdowns, which is highly impressive for any college football wide receiver. And doing it in the Big 12, which, 9 conference games, is also not an easy task. On top of that, you played both ways. So you get 4 or 5 interceptions on defense. You were forced to be reckoned with. Great coverage skills for Travis Hunter. He was a difference maker and one of the most valuable players, if not the most valuable player on his team and in college football. Not to mention that there's no one else since essentially Charles Woodson that has done this. And so that was recognized with the Heisman Trophy. So that's part number one. Part number two is comparing Travis Hunter to Ashton Genty's season. And what I think should be noted with Ashton Genty is I think it was the closest first place vote result. Like, the difference between the vote differential between Ashton Genty and Travis Hunter was so close that I think it set a record of some sort. But it was only a couple hundred votes, and I think Ashton Genty had like over 2,000, and Travis Hunter had like 2,350 votes of some sort. Super close race, and Ashton Genty was no doubtedly incredible all year. And what's unfortunate to see here is, Genty, in comparison to, other Heisman Trophy winners like Derrick Henry, had so much more so much better of a season than that. And you look at a guy like, he's going to go down as the Melvin Gordon of his time, where Melvin Gordon had very similar stats. He was in the 2,000s of rushing yards. He had 20-plus rushing touchdowns for Wisconsin, who plays a tougher schedule than Boise State. And neither Ashton Genty or Melvin Gordon won the Heisman. And I do think, I did say, a week or two ago that Travis Hunter should win the Heisman Trophy. I still very narrowly believe that. But there is plenty, my contradictory here is that there is plenty of evidence that suggests that Ashton Genty should have won as well. And had every bit of evidence, statistical records, most valuable performances to say that. And I think the deciding factor with that is that Boise State received a first-round bye in the college football playoffs and made the college football playoffs, in fact, and Colorado wasn't close. they were close to maybe playing in the Big 12 championship, but there was a lot of moving parts that needed to happen. And you finished 9-3 in the Big 12, which, again, not bad at all. But if you're talking most valuable player on a team for the Heisman Trophy, who was the differentiating factor? I think Ashton Jeanty wins that argument just as much, if not more, than Travis Hunter did. Because Ashton Jeanty did not have Shadur Sanders throwing in the ball. Of course, Ashton Jeanty didn't play two sides of the ball and averaged like 12 yards per carry every single game. And the statement where he said, teams that I'm playing against, knowing that I'm going to get the ball 30 times a game, still can't stop me, and I continue to produce great numbers every week, proves by itself that I am worthy of this Heisman Trophy winner. And he's 100% right. And I think the argument between the two is it's just one of those examples of why life isn't fair because both of them should have won. But my argument still remains that you're probably not going to see a Travis Hunter in a long time. Again, I mean, like Charles Woodson played a long time ago, I think near the year 2000 or before. I think it was like 1997. Nerds fact check me if I'm wrong, but a 20-year difference in time, a two-way player being in contention for the Heisman Trophy. It's just such a rarity, and to perform at that high of a level all season long while playing that many snaps I still stand on that. That is the most differentiating factor. It's just like you almost were in the Heisman race the wrong year. Like if Ashton Jeanty did it last year or next year when Travis Hunter is gone or, wasn't in the contention for Heisman, he was more like, Colorado was 4-8 or whatever they were. You're 100% winning the Heisman Trophy. But because Travis Hunter did it this year, you kind of got the short end of the boot, or you sort of got dealt with the stick, essentially. And that's my official take on the Heisman Trophy there. And we'll get more into it with the Stats and Scars episode, because I'm sure the medical guy and the analyst will have a lot to say about who they believe should or should not have won the Heisman Trophy. Dylan Gabriel and Cam Ward, you're just happy you got the invite. I do think I want to honor the fact that Ashton Jeanty was like the only athlete out of these four contenders that showed up wearing his team's uniform, representing his brand. Everyone else is wearing designer clothes. And that's honorable. And I think NFL scouts would look at that and admire that, to where they say, we're going to get an honorable man who believes in loyalty, who believes in the logo that he rocks every Sunday. And we're going to get an incredible young man. Not to say Travis Hunter isn't, obviously, or any of the other Heisman candidates. I'm saying that he's demonstrating maturity, and NFL scouts look at that more than really anything when they're looking at a top prospect. They already know you're good. They already know you're talented, especially as a running back. But to have maturity on top of that, first round, within the first 15 picks as a running back, which is a highly impressive thing to accomplish as an athlete, especially with the lifespan of running backs in the current NFL age, outside of Derrick Henry and some others who have kind of setting back the narrative for a little bit of time, being able to play at near 30 years old. Jeanty is kind of against the odds going into the NFL with the career life of an NFL running back. So, but yeah, that concludes our Shatter the Script segment. We're going to get into the NFL Power Rankings to wrap this one up. This would be a good time for an ad break, brought to you by something. Whether I read it or there's an actual ad being played, this would be good to annoy my listeners. So, all right, let's get into the NFL Power Rankings. And, a lot like the Travis Hunter thing, where I didn't want to contradict myself, but I'm willing to, point out the realism of my take and kind of say, well, Ashton Jeanty also deserved it, even though I said that Travis Hunter no doubtedly should win it. That's kind of like, I was kind of given more information once the Heisman Trophy was received. You're like, oh, crap. Like, you almost wish you could take that take back, But at the same time, the majority of my take I still agree with. I'm just saying, like, this one as well. I also said last week that the Detroit Lions will not be moving out of the number 1 spot. Well, you'll figure out in this power ranking that they do. and that's not because of a loss. It's for different reasons, which I'll get into. So my just outside of the top 5 bubble contains 3 different teams, all similar in talent and record. But last in this bubble is the Baltimore Ravens at 9-5. They are 1 game behind the Pittsburgh Steelers in the AFC North, I believe is their division. And of course, Lamar Jackson is playing at an incredible level, more incredible than he was last year. Another 5 touchdown, 4+ touchdown, I'll put it that way, performance versus the New York Giants this past Sunday. I mean, he's looking absolutely incredible. This is the best I've ever seen Lamar Jackson play. And the fact that they have 5 losses is odd to me, seeing that last year, like, I guess their team was just better last year. And again, I disagree with his MVP last year, and he could very well end up being a 3 times MVP NFL quarterback, with 1 being essentially given to him. But yeah, the Ravens are in that outside bubble. It'll be interesting to see how they finish out the division with the Pittsburgh Steelers ahead of them. The Vikings in the NFC North, they are 12-2. They're playing, this is recording on a Monday, so they're playing tonight. I put 12-2 because I assumed that they're going to beat the Chicago Bears, who have lost 7 straight games. But crazier things have happened. But the Vikings have shown consistently that, I think a lot of people doubt Darnold, and they just expect him to collapse at some point when he's not. He's actually getting better. If you go look at his last 4 or 5 games, I mean, it is multiple touchdown games, 5 games in a row, and throwing minimal amount of interceptions. I think he's around 28 touchdowns and 10 picks, which is a phenomenal year considering the narrative that had been brought on Sam Darnold his entire career, going from poverty franchise to poverty franchise, to being the backup quarterback at the 49ers, then to being on the Vikings, to which you were going to have to play in front of J.J. McCarthy, soon to predecess you as the starter. And instead, you're probably going to earn yourself a contract. So, big shout out to Sam Darnold. That team with Jordan Addison complementing Justin Jefferson and their Brian Flores-led defense is continuing to dominate. The Packers are just outside of the top 5. I think the real differentiating factor with the Packers here is that is the Jordan Love interception issue, which he didn't have any on Sunday Night Football versus the Seattle Seahawks, to which they won very decidingly against a plus 500 win percentage opponent away at the 12th man. That's a big-time win. They're 10-4 on the season. But early on, I mean, Jordan Love's been battling injuries, and injuries matter to quarterbacks. But, he's got 11 interceptions on the year. But last night he played a clean ball game. I think what Matt LaFleur did well, and that he's kind of probably going to change as the season goes on, is he's going to slow everything down. I think they've gotten into this, we got to pass the ball with Jordan Love, and he's got to have 3+ touchdowns a game, and if it's not that, then it's not a successful game. And Matt LaFleur is smart enough to know that is not the formula for consistent success in the NFL. And it just seemed to me they really slowed things down against the Seattle Seahawks, and they were more efficient with it. And sometimes a good little restart really helps a quarterback's mindset to go, "Hey man, that was clean. 2 touchdowns. I was 20 and 27, 230 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, nothing, and we won 30-13. I'll take it. That was awesome. Let's do that again." So I think you'll see a lot more growth from Jordan Love, and he'll probably end up once again with 30+ touchdown passes, or close to it, to end the year. And of course, you're getting your franchise guy. All right, at number 5, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers. They are at 10-4. They're coming off a loss to the Philadelphia Eagles, which was it was a pretty determined loss. I mean, it was 27-13. The Eagles practically dominated this game. Najee Harris had a big fumble that costed them 7 points in a turnover point swing. But Pittsburgh Steelers have shown all year that they're a pretty damn good team. An amazing defense. Russell Wilson and Justin Fields as a quarterback combo have been pretty effective. Mike Tomlin, once again, no losing record. So they have clinched a spot in the playoffs, and we'll see how their division will end up with the Ravens one game behind. If the Ravens win that division, obviously I think that I would put the Ravens over the Steelers, simply because Lamar Jackson has been that much better than the Pittsburgh Steelers quarterbacks. Number 4 is the 13-1 Kansas City Chiefs. Now, the one note that I have on the Kansas City Chiefs is that they have 10 one-possession game wins. They are 10-0 in one-possession games. And their only loss came to none other than my MVP, Josh Allen, for the Buffalo Bills. And of course, late season gimmick from Patrick Mahomes where you kind of roll your eyes, where he, ironically, he rolls his ankle and you're like, oh, here we go. We got the, classic game 15. Mahomes has rolled his ankle. He's going to battle adversity and tell his coaches, there's no way I'm going out. Take my ankle, I'm going back out. And then you figure out it's like a very mild ankle sprain. He's considered week to week. And you're like, okay, he's not battling through a torn ACL, or probably come out, if he wins the Super Bowl, it'll probably come out, it's like, oh, he did in fact tear his meniscus, or he had a partially torn Achilles or something, to where you're like, he defied all odds. And the reality of the fact is they were doing witchcraft and they brought him to the medical tent. So, but yeah, the Kansas City Chiefs, as good as they've been in the one-possession games, whether it be by black magic or what else, they are number 4, and you can't deny a business model that wins, almost 100% of your games. Number 3, the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, they're 12-2. They are in contention and tied with the Lions in the NFC for the number 1 seed. And I think this will get increasingly more interesting as the season goes along once I talk about the Lions. But their big wins I've listed here are the Steelers, Ravens, Commanders, and Packers. I think they play the Commanders. Yeah, they do. They play the Commanders this upcoming week for their second matchup. But those are great wins. I mean, you beat 2 AFC teams from the same division, Steelers and Ravens, who are the leaders. You beat an NFC North team, which that division has been great all year. And you beat your divisional opponent that is right behind you, or was right behind you when y'all played, the Commanders. So those are 4 really great wins that kind of cemented them in the top 3, in my opinion. What is strange to me is I was looking at their schedule, and obviously their big losses are to the Falcons and the Buccaneers. But if you look at their schedule, they struggled against every single NFC South team, all 4, every single one. They beat the Saints 15-12, which was like a field goal you to death matchup. It was an awful game to watch. I remember watching it a couple weeks ago, early in the season, I think, actually. And they beat them 15-12. They beat the Panthers 16-22, to which Xavier Legette dropped a game-winning touchdown to ice the game for the Eagles to lose on the game-winning drive for the Panthers. So almost 16-22, the Panthers almost lost. 15-12, Saints field goal them to death, almost lost. Lost to the Falcons 22-21, and then they got blown out by the Buccaneers. If the Eagles went to the playoffs and they played the Buccaneers, I'm going with the Bucs. For some reason, the NFC South just takes down the Eagles. So interesting. The Buccaneers are now 8-6, I believe. Now, number 2, the Detroit Lions. They're 12-2. They just came off a really high-scoring loss to the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen, who scored another 4 or 5 touchdowns in this one and almost put up, if that touch pass or that chest pass was counted, which was an incredible MVP play, by the way. If that play was counted, they would have hung 52 points or more, 50-plus points on the Lions, which is embarrassing for who I had as the number 1 team just a week ago. But that is not the reason why I am removing them from the number 1 spot. It is their injuries. David Montgomery out for the remainder of the year. He's getting surgery on his knee, I believe. The medical guy will speak more on that probably on the Stats and Scars episode coming up on Thursday. But that's big, big news. And they've had a ton of injuries to that defense that are detrimental to the team. I mean, of course, they had the big one with Aiden Hutchinson. I think Anzioni, I think is his name, is also hurt. So, and a lot of others. So injuries, I think, will impact the Detroit Lions more than any other team. And so I think they'll lose that first seed in the NFC because the Eagles' remaining schedule I don't believe is that difficult. But they're big wins nonetheless. They've beaten the Packers twice and the Vikings, who are obviously the division opponents. So they're 3-0 against those teams. The Seahawks they beat handily, and the Texans, despite Jared Goff throwing 5 picks. And their big loss, they lost to the Buccaneers and the Bills, of course, this past Sunday. But the Bucs, don't sleep on them. They've beaten a lot of really good teams early on in the year and so far. But the Bucs beat the Lions and the Eagles, which is, that's worth noting. Number 1, my MVP, Josh Allen. The Buffalo Bills at 11-3 are my number 1 team in the NFL. And, they had a back-to-back losses to the Ravens and Texans early in the year. Ever since then, it's been pretty much cake. Their big wins have been to the Lions, Chiefs, and Seahawks. But to beat the Lions and the Chiefs, those are your 2 teams who are like, you got to take them down in order for me to put you as the regular season number 1 ranked team in the power rankings, because every single one of those games, they beat the Chiefs by more than 1 possession. They put almost 50 points on the Lions inside of, the Lions stadium, the Lions home field. And so Josh Allen, man, like they always say MVP isn't about, multiple game stretches. It's about the entire season. What are we looking at? The entire season has been incredible. The type of throws that Josh Allen made in this game, I watched 90% of this game, it was unbelievable. And again, I can't reiterate the fact that this is the most talented quarterback in the NFL, hands down. And I think, I'll make my Shatter the Script statement here a little bit, is that I think the difference between a quarterback like Josh Allen and a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes is that Josh Allen can make any coach look good. Sean McDermott, obviously, who's really bad in game management scenarios. Josh Allen, it doesn't matter if you put Daboll, it doesn't matter if you put McDermott. Obviously, McDermott's only been the coach, but if you put anybody at that head coaching position for the Bills, Josh Allen is going to still be Josh Allen, even without a wide receiver 1, who Stephon Diggs admittedly said that he deserves the MVP this year, bitterly so probably. And Mahomes, I would argue, I think Andy Reid, like being arguably one of the best coaches in NFL history, really assists Mahomes' progression as a quarterback and, as a play caller, and like missing talent on the team has really took a toll on Patrick Mahomes' performances this year. And of course there were injuries to, Pacheco, but like you lose Rashee Rice, Hollywood Brown, and you're left over with Juju, 35-year-old Travis Kelce, and DeAndre Hopkins. Yeah, I can see like you're going to struggle in performance and statistics, yet at the same time they're 13-1. Are they deservingly 13-1? One could argue, but I've never seen that with Josh Allen. When Josh Allen doesn't have a lot of people to play, such as this year, he's the best quarterback in the NFL, and he makes the biggest plays when they count, and he's the clutchest I've seen this year. I just think there's a differentiating factor this year. I've been struggling with that word today, but hands down, I will say for the rest of my career that Josh Allen is the best quarterback I've ever watched, and probably will be in my lifetime. So he's, again, still has my vote for the MVP, and that won't change. There's no way. All right. Well, that concludes today's episode. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I had a fun time talking about Bill Belichick going to North Carolina. I think that's the most intriguing topic in college football right now, outside of the college football playoff. And it was a fun topic to cover. But if you're a first-time listener, which I didn't say at the beginning of the episode for my own reasons, I'm just kidding. But if you're a first-time listener, you can follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter with the handle @Shatter the Script. We're posting our video content and clips on there weekly for you guys to like and share with your friends. And then if you want to follow and subscribe and share our episodes, you can find them on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. Now, I understand now that people watch on Spotify, it does provide video. So if you didn't want to watch it on YouTube and you wanted to kind of listen and do visual at the same time, like you turn off your phone and it still works. Spotify is a really good tool to listen to podcasts on. That's kind of what I share most of the time on our stories. However, YouTube and Apple Podcasts work just fine. I'm just saying. Okay, we will see y'all next Tuesday. This upcoming Thursday, we have the Stats and Scars episode. We'll be covering the Christmas games, Heisman Trophy, college football playoff projections, and whatnot. So we will see y'all on Stats and Scars, releasing on Thursday. Thank y'all, everybody. Have a good rest of y'all's week. And Merry Christmas, in case y'all don't see me. So.